My younger sister is the heroine of a rebirth novel. The very first thing she did after coming back was to show up at my door, heavily pregnant, and throw herself into my husband's arms. My child is about to be born. Will you be the father? Facing the woman he had always longed for but could never have, Erick agreed without the slightest hesitation. Having gotten her answer, my sister turned to me. Sister, you've been sitting in my place for far too long. Isn't it time to give it back? Erick chimed in as well. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and file for divorce. Get out. This marriage will definitely end. But the ones who'll be kicked out are them, not me. Chapter 1. On the day I married Erick, I had a dream. That dream told me I was nothing more than the villainess in a cliché rebirth novel. And my younger sister, Lisa, was the heroine, destined to die and then be reborn. In her previous life, she fell in love with a scumbag. In order to spend the rest of her life with him, she stubbornly broke off her engagement with her fiancé, Erick. Her way of breaking off the engagement was by drugging both Erick and me, locking us together in the same room. Afterwards, she put on the act of a betrayed victim, dragging the media and both families to catch us in the act. She succeeded in calling off the engagement. From then on, Erick and I were branded as the shameless pair, I, the pretentious coquette, and he, the unfaithful playboy. To smooth over the scandal, Erick had no choice but to marry me. But when Lisa ran away with her so-called lover, she didn't find the happiness she dreamed of. Once their money was gone, the scumbag revealed his true face. He drank, gambled, whored around, beat her, and eventually, for the sake of money, locked Lisa in a filthy rental room to sell her body. By the time she was tortured to death, she was already 7 months pregnant. In endless regret, she died only to be reborn 2 months before her death. This time, she played along, waiting until the scumbag lowered his guard. Then, with the help of her simps, she threw him into prison. And after doing all that, in her words, after removing all the obstacles to her happiness, she returned, pregnant, to reclaim her so-called true love, her ex-fiancé, who now happened to be my husband, Erick. At first, I didn't take that dream seriously. Until the very first day Lisa came back, she really did show up at my doorstep. Chapter 2. Erick, I missed you so much. The moment Monica, our housekeeper, opened the door, Lisa shoved her aside and rushed straight into the living room. Throwing herself into Erick's arms, I steadied Monica, who had nearly been knocked over, then stared in shock at the man and woman clinging so tightly together. Lisa's face was covered in tears as she choked out, Erick, you once told me you'd take care of me for a lifetime. Does that promise still count? On Erick's face was the ecstasy of a man who had regained his lost treasure. He didn't even hesitate. It counts. As long as you come back, it will always count. Exactly the same. Their words, their actions, even the looks on their faces, everything was identical to what I had seen in my dream. So my dream, was it real? Chapter 3. Erick's love for Lisa was no secret. In fact, he had almost lost his life for her once. Even after marrying me for 3 years, he never managed to forget her. He would often stare at her photos. Lost in sorrow, he clung stubbornly to his so-called devotion, staying faithful to Lisa, never touching another woman. Even though I was his wife, he had never once stepped into my room. At first, I really didn't understand. How could he go this far for Lisa? What magic did she have over him? Now I finally knew. Because he was the male lead, and Lisa was the female lead. His entire existence was written to revolve around her. The dream told me that his obsession came from one thing in childhood. Lisa once gave him a strawberry lollipop. That piece of candy became the only sweet thing in his otherwise bleak and miserable life. So he decided Lisa was his one true love, his salvation. He loved her silently, guarded her stubbornly, and waited endlessly for the day she would turn back to him. A cruel thought crossed my mind. What if he knew the only reason Lisa gave him that candy was because a dog had licked it and she thought it was dirty? What would he think then? Chapter 4. While I was still reeling from the realization that the world I'd lived in for 26 years was nothing but a melodramatic novel, the male and female leads were already tangled up in their sweet declarations of love. Lisa's tears glistened as she pleaded, Erick, my baby is about to be born. Will you take care of us as the father? Erick nodded instantly. Your baby is my baby. Taking care of you both would be my greatest honor. Lisa smiled through her tears, casting me a glance before continuing. Then I have only one request. My child must have a rightful, legitimate identity. Facing his beloved, Erick had already abandoned all bottom lines. Of course, as long as you stay, I'll do anything you ask. Lisa gave a satisfied smile. She lifted her chin arrogantly and said to me, I want you to divorce him. He will marry me. Erick could not agree fast enough, hugging Lisa tightly. He was already reaching for his phone to call a lawyer for the divorce papers. I couldn't hold back anymore, even if they were supposed to be the male and female leads. This was simply disgusting. A younger sister, demanding in front of her elder sister that her brother-in-law divorce and marry her? No wonder my role in this story was written as the vicious supporting character. With people like this, how could anyone stay kind? Not being vicious would be an injustice to myself. I interrupted them with a bitter laugh. Excuse me, but shouldn't you at least ask what I think? Before I could say more, Lisa exploded with rage. She glared at me with wide eyes, furious yet haughty. What do you think you have to say? Sister, don't forget why Erick married you. He never loved you, you know that. I did know. She pressed further. Erick's wife should have been me. You've sat in my place long enough. It's time to give it back. Erick looked at me impatiently. Roxana, Lisa's right. I never loved you. Be smart. Sign the divorce. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. Chapter 5. Divorce was inevitable, but not right now. In that dream, I didn't divorce him immediately either. Instead, I chose to make a huge scene, even though I thought the crying, screaming woman in the dream was completely unlike my usual style. The me in that dream really did grow more and more unhinged. In the dream, today was the day I pointed my finger right at Lisa's nose and cursed her out. You're back here seducing my husband while carrying another man's child. Don't you feel the least bit filthy? You want to know why Erick married me? I know, and you know even better than I do. It was you who drugged us and locked us in a room together. Our marriage is thanks to you. You already got what you wanted, running away with your so-called lover, so why come back now? You just love debasing yourself, don't you? My words made her clutch her stomach and collapse pitifully into Erick's arms, sobbing. It was my immaturity back then. I loved the wrong man. Now I finally know the only person I truly love is Erick. I've already lost everything. Only by being with Erick can I feel like my life has meaning. Sister, do you really have to push me to my death before you'll be satisfied? I had just opened my mouth to retort when Erick suddenly slapped me across the face. Lisa is pregnant, and you're still upsetting her like this? How can you be so vicious? It's me who loves Lisa. It's me who wants to divorce you. It's me who wants to keep her by my side. If you've got a problem, take it out on me. So I slapped him back. Unfortunately, he was much stronger than me. Right after I struck him, he shoved me hard to the floor. My forehead slammed into the corner of the coffee table, and blood immediately poured down my face. The wound hurt, but what hurt more was my heart. I let out a broken scream and swept all the expensive tea sets from the table onto the ground. Shards of porcelain scattered everywhere. I dropped to my knees among the debris, like a lunatic, accusing Erick of his cruelty. I'm vicious? When she caused your car accident and you lay unconscious for 3 whole months. The doctors said you might become a vegetable. Who was it that never left your side, caring for you day and night? I pointed at Lisa, weeping prettily in his arms. And what was she doing then? She was off fooling around with her lover. You lay there for 3 months and she never came to see you even once. And yet you call me vicious? What about her? Chapter 6. Back then, Lisa didn't even like Erick. Her whole head was filled with that man named Daniel. For Daniel, she dropped out of high school, smoked, drank, dyed her hair, partied in nightclubs, mixed with the worst crowds, and even got taken away by vice squads a few times. My parents were so furious they nearly disowned her several times, but she was always good at acting pitiful, shed a few tears, act cute, apologize, and they'd cave every time. To stop her from wasting herself away with Daniel, my parents froze her bank cards, but even that couldn't stop the clever little heroine. She knew Erick had feelings for her, so whenever she was in trouble, she called him. For example, when she was detained by a club owner late at night, she'd call Erick to pay her bill. Or, when she booked a room at a hotel under Erick's family's group, she'd call him to grant her free access. And the next morning, call him again to prepare her a lavish breakfast. Or, when she was caught in an earthquake in a neighboring city and couldn't reach Daniel, she called Erick to come keep her company because she was scared to be alone. That time, Erick and Lisa ended up in the same guest house room. When Erick saw Lisa freshly showered, looking pitiful and delicate, he lost control and kissed her. Lisa was dazed and didn't push him away. And so, like sparks hitting dry tinder, things quickly escalated. The next morning, Lisa woke up and burst into tears, accusing Erick of taking advantage of her. Erick apologized profusely while also confessing his burning love for her. But Lisa only had Daniel in her heart. She covered her ears, crying in grievance, shouting, "I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it." She declared she wanted to cut ties with Erick forever, saying she never wanted to see him again. Erick panicked and blurted out Daniel's lies. Daniel hadn't failed to reach her because of the earthquake, he was simply too cowardly to come, and was instead in another woman's bed. Erick showed her the evidence, photos, videos, but Lisa refused to believe it. She thought Erick had fabricated everything just to win her. Erick decided to take her to see the truth with her own eyes. But on the way back, Lisa suddenly got a call from Daniel. He claimed he was already in the disaster zone, coming to see her. Lisa immediately wanted to get out of the car, even though they were on a stretch of road where stopping was impossible. When Erick refused, she tried to grab the steering wheel. Inevitably, the car crashed. Lisa was lucky, just a few scrapes. She jumped out, desperate to find Daniel, leaving the unconscious Erick bleeding in the car. And that was when I happened to pass by and saved Erick. Chapter 7. Erick broke a leg and also hit his head, falling into a coma for 3 whole months. In the dream, I seemed to really love him, because I took care of him without complaint during all that time. Since the doctors said that a loved one's voice might increase his chances of waking up, I even went to find Lisa, hoping she would come and see Erick. And the result? She only cared about washing Daniel's clothes, cooking for him, playing the role of his little housewife. She didn't spare a single glance for Erick, the man who had been hurt because of her. In the dream, I cried my eyes out, shamelessly pouring all this out, desperately trying to make Erick understand that I was the one who truly loved him. Unfortunately, they were the male and female leads, and the love between a male lead and a female lead needs no logic. Love is enough. Lisa's explanation for everything was that her instincts had fallen for Erick before her heart did. Erick's response? Love can forgive everything. The real me would bless their twisted union. But in the dream, I was the vicious supporting character. And what do vicious supporting characters do? They only know how to throw themselves in front of the male lead, make trouble for the heroine, and ultimately destroy themselves. Pathetic, laughably useless tricks. I wasn't going to be that incompetent, even though I hadn't believed in the dream at first. I couldn't deny its influence. So these past 3 years, unlike the groveling fool in the dream, I didn't debase myself begging for Erick's non-existent love. Instead, I used the Erick family name to grow my own business. And every now and then, I would stroll around the old mansion, paying respects to Erick's grandparents and parents. Why? Because in the dream, his family were all antagonists who disapproved of Lisa. One by one they suffered accidents, giving Lisa the chance to play the devoted caretaker, earning their favor until the story wrapped up with a happy ending. Me? Following the principle of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, I managed to win over everyone in the family, everyone except Erick. And no one knew that over these 3 years, I had occasionally, whether deliberately or not, leaked Lisa's whereabouts to Erick, especially when he was trying to focus on his career. Thanks to my little interventions, the Erick of today was nowhere near as capable as the Erick in the dream, but I still needed a little more time to reach the outcome I wanted. So yes, the divorce would definitely happen, but not yet. Since I wouldn't file for divorce right away, Erick tried to disgust me on purpose. He let Lisa live in our house and even gave her my room, parading their little love affair right under my nose. I acted calm, because really, this was exactly how it played out in the dream. I wasn't surprised in the least. In fact, their behavior now suited me just fine. I think I was starting to understand what that invisible barrier was that authors always describe between the male and female leads. That thing outsiders could never break through. It wasn't anything magical, it was just that they only ever spoke to each other, completely ignoring the feelings of everyone else. Like now, early in the morning, Lisa sat on the genuine leather sofa I had chosen myself, her hand stroking her belly as she ordered Monica around like the lady of the house. Monica brought her a cup of oolong tea. Lisa took one look, then turned away and burst into tears. Erick, who had been personally preparing a nutritious breakfast for her, immediately dropped what he was doing, rushed over, and hugged her, murmuring soft comfort. "What's wrong? Why are you crying? Who upset you?" As he asked that last question, his eyes cut toward me like knives. I rolled my eyes in return. Lisa glanced pitifully at the steaming cup of tea and explained between sobs. "Monica knows I don't drink oolong tea, and yet she deliberately brought me oolong tea. She must not welcome me here, right?" Monica hurriedly tried to explain. Flustered. "I didn't know your preferences. Sir and Madam drink oolong tea every morning, so it's the only tea we usually keep in the house. Out of habit. The moment she said that, Lisa's crying grew even louder. "See? She says it's a habit. What she really means is that I'm just an outsider here. Fine then. Maybe I should just leave?" She made a show of trying to stand up, but only squirmed dramatically on the sofa, unable to get up. The moment Erick saw the woman he loved crying, all his reason flew out the window. He barked at Monica, "Throw away all the oolong tea. From now on, only stock whatever Lisa likes." I couldn't believe he actually said that. My dahompo had been bought through special channels, worth a fortune. Monica glanced at me, then spoke carefully, but Erick had no intention of hearing her out. He cut her off sharply. "No buts. If I tell you to throw it out, you throw it out. If you can work, work. If not, get out." Monica, calm and deliberate, finished her sentence. "But I don't know what Miss Lisa actually likes. Sir, perhaps you could tell me? And besides, the one who hired me was Madam. You don't have the authority to dismiss me." Erick's face darkened, ready to lash out, but I cut in first. "Monica, don't bother brewing tea. My dear little sister here, her favorite drink is plain boiled tap water. It has to be unfiltered, boiled until there's a thin layer of lime scale floating on top," she once said. Only that kind of water really makes her feel alive. Unfortunately, nowadays that kind of water is rare, so she'll just have to settle for ordinary tap water. And no, I wasn't making it up. Lisa actually said this herself. Back then, she was completely obsessed with Daniel, neglecting even her studies for him. My parents strongly opposed the relationship. Heartbroken, they tried to reason with her. They said they didn't object to her dating, but at least she should find someone of equal standing, not some thug who had never even finished elementary school and could barely read. They tried to give her examples, to show her she and Daniel weren't from the same world. My mother pleaded with her, "Just look at your life. You wear tailor-made clothes, carry limited edition brands, eat and drink only the freshest and best. Even your bathwater is cleaner than the water other people drink. And Daniel? What does he have to offer you? No house, no car, no job. He lives in a 300 yuan a month rental, and won't even buy you a 1 yuan bottle of mineral water. If you stay with him, you'll be drinking the cheapest, filthiest water there is." But Lisa wouldn't listen. In her mind, no one was allowed to insult her boyfriend. She shoved my mother away, glaring viciously, and spat out a line that I will never forget. "So what if it's filthy water? As long as I can be with him, even if the water is full of sand and mud, I'll drink it sweet as honey. That's something you'll never understand, the taste of life." She pushed my mother so hard she fell and hit her head, and drove my father into a heart attack with rage. While I was busy caring for our parents, Lisa was busy stealing money from home to run away with Daniel. But that taste of life she claimed to love so much, it couldn't sustain a delicate hothouse flower like her. In less than 3 years, she withered away and died. If she weren't the female lead, then with her pathetic, self-inflicted mess, what right would she have to a second chance at life? Chapter 8. Erick's brows furrowed tightly as he barked. "Roxana, that's enough. Apologize to Lisa right now." He launched into his self-righteous monologue again, basically saying that he knew I loved him, but he didn't love me, that even if I had his body, I could never have his heart. and warning me not to bully Lisa. In my head, I laughed bitterly. Your body and heart. I don't care about either. The only thing I want are your shares and your money. Lisa, meanwhile, put on her usual act, part pitiful, part defiant. Lifting her chin, she said to me, "Sister, no matter how you target me, Erick will never love you. You should realize that in love, the one who isn't loved is the true third wheel. Getting a divorce sooner is also a kind of release." Those last 10 words, I did agree with. Divorce is a release, but that didn't stop me from snapping back. Bully you? Who do you think you are? I'm too busy to waste time watching your lousy performance. I turned around and walked away, leaving her behind sobbing endlessly. My plan was at a critical stage. Once I had everything secured, then I'd take my time dealing with them. But I forgot one thing: Lisa was the type of female lead who excelled at drama. In the author's hands, her entire dynamic with the male lead was simple. She made mistakes. He forgave her. She caused trouble. He cleaned it up. She stirred chaos. He defended her and slapped everyone else in the face. Marketed as a sweet and satisfying romance? I couldn't see where the sweetness or satisfaction was supposed to be. Chasing after a walking disaster and constantly cleaning up her messes. Abusing power to force apologies on her behalf. Maybe the only people who found that sweet were the so-called male and female leads themselves. I didn't get it, and honestly, I was shocked. Maybe because my attitude had changed. The plot was shifting too. Originally, this chapter of the story was supposed to center at home, me throwing tantrums and making trouble, Lisa crying pitifully, Erick venting his anger on me in Lisa's defense. But since I was too busy running the company to waste my time at home, Lisa decided to come straight to my office instead. The moment I got word, I ordered security to throw her out. Half an hour later, she strutted back in anyway. Clinging to Erick's arm, she gazed around my office with undisguised envy, then declared, as if it were her right, "I heard you've been running the company these past years? Well, starting today, you don't need to come anymore. From now on, I'll be helping Erick. Erick, I'll be this company's UFO from now on. What do you think?" Erick chuckled at her ridiculous slip of the tongue, but instead of correcting her, he looked at her with eyes full of indulgence. "Fine, as long as you're happy." I couldn't hold back my laughter, making no effort to hide the mockery in my tone. "You? Help? Have you ever worked a day in your life? Do you know anything about management? Operations? Do you even know what this company does? Can you tell the difference between a CEO, a COO, a UFO, and KFC? The lowest academic degree in this company is a bachelor's. And you? You didn't even finish your sophomore year of high school. With what qualifications are you going to help? Where do you get the audacity and that shameless face of yours? Or is it from those cheap tears of yours? My dear little sister, not everyone is like Erick. Aside from him, no one else will ever mistake your ignorance for cuteness. Next time, don't spout brainless nonsense. You'll just end up making people laugh at you. She froze. Her rough, still unrecovered from 3 years of hardship face flushing beet red. Combined with her bulky figure, she looked like an oversized silkworm cocoon. And then, of course, she cried again. "Erick, look! She's insulting me, calling me stupid in a roundabout way." Just as Erick was glaring at me, I smiled. Being uneducated really is scary. You don't just have poor reading comprehension. Apparently your listening comprehension is broken too. Where did I say it in a roundabout way? I was being very direct. Lisa, if you didn't catch it the first time, let me repeat, stupidity isn't the worst thing. What's truly frightening is having no self-awareness. I'm talking about you. Useless. Got it? Lisa clutched her belly, waddling off in tears, tossing back one last line. "You're too much." Too much? I almost laughed to death. If that's too much, then I guess I've still got room to improve. Erick, furious at seeing his beloved driven away, pointed a trembling finger at me and spat out a threat. "Roxana, I'll give you one day. Get out of this company, or don't blame me for being ruthless." 5 minutes later, he stormed out too. Honestly, I hadn't said much. All I did was pull out the business license, the one that clearly listed the legal owner's name, and showed it to him. What could I say? He was just too forgetful. From the very day we got married, this company had already been mine. Chapter 9. My wedding with Erick was anything but glorious. And yet, at that time, deep down, I was happy. I don't want to admit it, but before I had that dream, I truly liked him. Now I understand that it wasn't really my feelings, it was simply the emotions the author forced onto the villainess. On the wedding day, Erick told me coldly that he didn't love me, that the marriage was only a convenient way to handle public opinion, and that I should not hold on to any delusions. Back then, still trapped by the character setting, I said foolish things like, "One day, you'll see my worth." He sneered, looked me up and down with disdain, and said, "You're not even worth a strand of her hair. Don't do unnecessary things, or you'll only make me despise you more." With that, he left for another room, leaving me alone. I went back to my room, devastated, and then I had that dream. Absurd, yet so real. In just one night, I seemed to live my entire short life, and even witnessed the male and female leads so-called happily ever after. Honestly, when I woke up, I nearly vomited. But after thinking about it seriously for 5 minutes, I realized that while the dream wasn't real, it was a warning. From it, I learned one truth: love doesn't matter. Being a hopeless romantic only shortens your life. What truly matters are money, power, and standing on the very top. So the next day, I brewed Erick a cup of Da Hong Pao tea, pretending to be obedient. He didn't even touch it, once again warning me harshly not to do unnecessary things. I smiled and replied, "I'm already married to you. If you keep treating me like this, won't that make me a living widow? If outsiders find out, imagine how they'll laugh at me." Before he could scold me, I quickly changed the subject. "Since you can't give me the love I want, you should at least give me some compensation, something to make my life more fulfilling. That way, I won't cling to you." He asked what I wanted. I told him straight out, I wanted the company I now own. Chapter 10. 3 years ago, this company was barely known, but because of that dream, I researched its prospects and realized the development I saw in the dream made sense. I believed it would become the industry leader within 3 years. Erick, eager to stop me from clinging to him, agreed to transfer the company to my name. That very day, I dragged him to complete the paperwork. I even had him sign an additional agreement stating that the company was my personal property and that he could never take it back under any circumstances. Once the company was mine, I treated that dream as a roadmap, constantly following the trajectory I'd seen, expanding the business accordingly, and from time to time, I interfered with Erick, just to stop him from becoming the all-powerful CEO from the dream. Looking at the results now, I'd say I've already succeeded more than halfway. At the very least, I now fit the role of a true CEO far more than he does. As for Erick, compared to 3 years ago, he hasn't advanced at all. He inherited the family business, yes, but because his mind is always consumed by Lisa, his performance is mediocre, living off the past with no real new partnerships. If I hadn't constantly spoken up for him in front of the family, he would have been stripped of his position already. Of course, in my heart, I do hope the family eventually changes heirs, preferably to me, but the timing isn't right yet. Until my plans are complete, I'll let him bask in his petty pride for a few more days. Meanwhile, I haven't been idle. Living under the same roof as the male and female leads, you either disgust them, or they disgust you. As the villainess, I naturally chose the first option. One morning, I deliberately wore a necklace worth a fortune, walking past Lisa several times until I was sure she noticed. Soon enough, Lisa started crying at home, lamenting out loud how she envied me for receiving so many gifts, while she had nothing. I fanned the flames. How could Daniel treat you like this? He doesn't even buy you gifts. After all, you carried 3 of his children. That's outrageous. Yes, Lisa had been pregnant 3 times. The first 2 she lost, and the current one she had wanted to abort. But the doctor told her that another abortion could leave her unable to ever conceive again, so she had no choice but to keep it. Nervously, Lisa looked at Erick. Seeing his darkened expression, she quickly explained, "I was young and foolish then. It wasn't my choice. Daniel forced me." "Erick, you're not mad at me, are you?" Then she began her performance, recounting all the suffering and tears she endured while with Daniel. Erick's heart ached for her. Of course, I seized the chance. Funny, not long ago, didn't you brag to me that Daniel made you carry 3 children because he loved you enough? Quite the story, isn't it? Lisa panicked. Shut up. You're lying. I never said that. Oh, she did say it. But what's that to me? As the villainess, isn't it my duty to stir up trouble between the leads? I didn't stay to hear the rest. Mission accomplished. I left in my high heels, Hermes bag swinging, happily heading off to make money. That afternoon, I received several alerts, deductions amounting to 50 million, mostly on clothes, jewelry, bags, and even some auctioned collectibles. Then Monica messaged me. Lisa had dolled herself up like a pregnant peacock, just waiting for me to come home so she could flaunt it all. Too bad, she'd be disappointed. At the office, I removed my makeup, making myself look tired and haggard, even rubbing my eyes red. Then I drove straight to Erick's family estate. On the way, I made a quick phone call to my parents. Until now, they hadn't known Lisa was back. I had deliberately kept it a secret, forbidding anyone in the know from saying a word. Neither my parents nor Erick's family were aware of her return. But today, it was time they found out. Chapter 11. I arrived at Erick's family estate in tears. For the past 3 years, in the eyes of his family, I had always been the strong, considerate daughter-in-law. I never showed even a trace of grievance or weakness in front of them. So the moment I cried, everyone was alarmed. Maybe it's because we're all supporting characters in this story, but I genuinely get along with Erick's family. They actually care about me. As soon as I stepped inside, my mother-in-law rushed over, distressed, asking what had happened. I replayed all the tragic misfortunes from my dream, using them as emotional fuel until I could cry for real. Curled in her arms, I recounted a version of my painful experience, and under their anxious questioning, I finally revealed, looking humiliated, that Lisa had been living in my house for some time now. And of course, I added some seasoning to the story. Isn't embellishment the villainess's specialty? I didn't feel guilty in the slightest. In my telling, Lisa was nothing but a shameless woman, betrayed by a scumbag, returning with his child in tow, looking for a sucker to pick up the pieces. And Erick, unfortunately, was that sucker. I told them that Lisa had not only moved into my house but insisted on sleeping in the same room as Erick. A married man, a married woman, neither knowing the meaning of discretion. I went on, when I, helplessly, reminded them to be mindful of appearances. Erick scolded me on Lisa's behalf, nearly raising his hand against me. Their faces grew darker and darker, and when I saw their anger boiling over, I added one last explosive detail. Honestly, I could have endured all that, but they, woo-woo, covering my face. I sobbed harder. Then, after some gentle coaxing, I showed them today's bank transactions. Erick had spent 50 million on Lisa in a single afternoon. In a wealthy family, splurging occasionally isn't a big deal. The problem was that Erick used company funds, the very money scheduled for tomorrow's supplier payment. Fine. I admit it. I set him up. I had linked his card to a supplementary account. By law, that made the money part of our marital property. I'd been spending steadily for years, a bag here, a car there, sometimes even a house. But unlike Lisa, I spent with strategy. Most of my personal luxuries were in amounts too small for the rich to care about. Instead, I focused my generosity outward: antiques for grandpa, jade for grandma, collectible tea cakes for father-in-law, luxury handbags and jewelry for mother-in-law. And Erick himself? I dressed him to perfection. His cufflinks alone cost enough to feed an ordinary family for a year. Yes, I spent lavishly, but because I showered them with gifts, they only saw me as filial. They'd even persuade me to indulge myself more. And every time, I would smile sweetly and say, Erick and I are still young. It's not our time to enjoy just yet. When we grow old, surely the next generation will be as filial to us as I am to you. It was true affection. Yes, but it was also deliberate strategy. I never left too much money in Erick's account. Not long ago, while he and Lisa were busy feeding each other, whispering sweet nothings and ignoring me, I casually reminded him that the company would soon need funds for supplier payments. Then, over the next few days, I flaunted my luxury purchases in front of Lisa. I knew her personality. Sooner or later, she would whine and demand Erick buy her the same. Lisa might be the heroine, but she was also a spoiled heiress. Her spending habits rivaled mine, but Erick's card was already drained by me. And Erick, being the male lead, couldn't possibly admit to Lisa that he had no money. So, in his grand CEO style, he ordered the accountant to wire money directly from the company to him. The company was his, so the money was his too. And to Lisa, Erick was hers, so his money was hers as well. So of course, they spent without guilt. The company wouldn't collapse over $50 million in cash flow, but no competent executive would ever use public funds for private indulgence. This incident might not completely ruin Erick's standing with his family, but it certainly deepened their hatred for Lisa. After all, before she came back, Erick had never done anything so reckless. As for Lisa's shiny new gifts, they wouldn't last long. My mother-in-law declared that even if she had to burn them, she would never allow Lisa to enjoy them. Meanwhile, my parents had already arrived at the villa where I was living. Chapter 12. When my parents arrived at my house, it was Monica who opened the door. They walked in with darkened faces, only to hear the playful laughter of Erick and Lisa coming from the master bedroom. I forgot to mention, they are currently living in the master bedroom, the very one I used to occupy. It's not as if the villa lacks bedrooms, but Lisa just had to take an interest in mine. The moment she said, "I really envy sister, living in such a big room, unlike me. These past few years I've only had," I immediately gave it to her. I had no desire to listen to her pointless whining. Besides, not just one room, the whole house. I have plenty. Her move? It played right into my hands. While they were busy indulging in their shameless intimacy, my parents burst into the room, furious, and caught the two of them disheveled in bed. My father's face turned purple with rage, pointing at Lisa. His voice shook with grief and fury. "Do you have no shame? He is your brother-in-law." Lisa shrank behind Erick, head lowered, refusing to meet my parents' eyes, but her face carried no fear, only deep resentment. Erick, in a show of gallantry, shielded her and glared at my parents. "I don't care if you are her father. If you dare speak to her like that again, I'll peel your skin off without hesitation." My father narrowed his eyes at him, swallowing his rage. "Oh, then let's see how you'll peel my skin." He then roared at Lisa, "Come back with us right now." But Lisa refused. Just like 3 years ago, she began spouting her twisted logic. How true love is never a crime, but being unloved is. How pursuing her own happiness wasn't wrong, the wrong was mine, for not stepping aside. That if I divorced Erick, she could openly live here as his wife. That the role of Mrs. Erick had always belonged to her, and I was the intruder who stole her place. My mother couldn't hold back and slapped her across the face. But the very next second, Erick slapped my mother, with domineering arrogance. Erick declared, "I can't bear to lay a hand on her, yet you dare strike her? If you touch even a hair on her head again, I'll cut off your hand." Lisa's eyes welled with gratitude, while my parents were nearly driven insane with rage. But they weren't the only ones enraged, so were Erick's family. Because of the cameras installed in the house, we had been watching the live feed. The moment Erick's hand struck, his family arrived at the door. The old master was the first to storm in, cane raised high. He struck Erick with it as soon as he entered. "Come on then, let me see how you peel skin. Show me." Grandmother rushed in and hit him too. "We raised you all these years, and this is the nonsense you've learned?" And then his mother lunged at Lisa, delivering a resounding slap. "This is all because of you. You shameless woman. Why did you come back? Haven't you ruined Erick enough already?" Chapter 13. After the chaos, we all ended up gloriously wounded. Here's what happened. The moment Erick saw Lisa being hit, he panicked and shoved his own mother. She lost her balance in her high heels and fell hard. My father-in-law, furious at his son for daring to push his wife, was about to discipline him when Lisa grabbed a vase and smashed it on his head, knocking him unconscious. She even remembered to deliver her lines as she struck. "No, I won't let you hurt Erick." My grandfather, seeing both his son and daughter-in-law collapse, swung his cane even faster. "You must be insane." Lisa, crying while confessing to Erick, shouted "I'm sorry," and flung herself forward, knocking my grandfather aside as well. I rushed to catch him. worried he might get seriously hurt, but Lisa took the chance to rake her claws across my face. My grandmother froze for a moment, then screamed, "Revolting! Absolutely revolting!" She lunged to strike Lisa, but Erick, ever the author's wife-protecting demon, instinctively shielded Lisa, even shoving my grandmother's hand away with grand, domineering flair. She nearly fell too. Thankfully I caught her just in time. After setting Grandpa down, Lisa lunged at me again, sobbing as her nails tore at my neck, crying, "I didn't mean it." Heh, but I did. A few scratches in exchange for Erick's family completely losing faith in the so-called hero and heroine? That was a bargain I'd gladly take. I ordered the driver to bring the stretch Lincoln and take us all to the hospital. In summary, Grandpa, Grandma, and my parents were mostly shaken, heart palpitations, high blood pressure. My mother-in-law sprained her ankle. My father-in-law suffered the worst, 7 stitches in his head. As for me, I looked the most tragic, my face and neck clawed open by Lisa, the blood making me look nearly disfigured. So yes, the entire extended family ended up hospitalized. And my parents, the ones who 3 years ago, when Lisa schemed against me, only comforted her while calling me disgraceful and shameless in front of everyone, they actually apologized to me? "We're sorry. It's our fault. We didn't teach your sister properly, and you've suffered because of it." I felt nothing, only a strange, bitter amusement. Apologies? At this point? I had long since passed the age where a single sorry could heal me. After all, in that dream, in the original plotline, my ending was 1,000 times worse than now. And not just me, my parents too. Everyone's fate was far more tragic than today. In the dream, or rather, the book's original story, after a few petty schemes and failed attempts to harm Lisa, I not only failed to touch a hair on her head, I only pushed Erick further into her arms. While his disgust for me grew, consumed by hatred, I arranged for Lisa to be kidnapped. But with her heroine's halo, she emerged unscathed, rescued right on cue. Me? I was thrown into prison thanks to Erick's machinations. There, they bribed the inmates to torture me daily, forcing me to sign the divorce papers. I lived through a month worse than hell itself. 1 month later, Erick walked into my cell with Lisa in his arms. They stood above me, while I lay like rotting flesh in the dirt. "Lisa's about to give birth. I don't have time to waste on you. Either you sign today, or you die. I'll be a widower. For Lisa's sake, I'll give you one last day." Lisa, with that sanctimonious face of hers, scolded me. "Erick and I share true love. Why can't you let us be happy? Dragging this out only tortures yourself. You're losing nothing but your life, but we'd be losing love. Sister, you can't be so cruel." Funny, when she drugged me and threw me into Erick's bed years ago, she had said something similar. "Sister, all you lost by marrying Erick is your freedom, but what I lost was love." How laughable. In her world, only her love mattered. As the evil supporting actress, I remained unrepentant. In the end, I really did make Erick a widower. I endured for a few extra days, long enough to see Lisa give birth to her child, before I died. I died choking her happiness, even in my last breath. My body, when I finally perished, was nothing but mangled meat. No one claimed my corpse. Not Erick and Lisa, of course, and not even my parents, who declared I had ruined Lisa's happiness and stained her child's birth with disgrace. They hated me so much they wouldn't even collect my remains. In the end, it was a nameless prison guard who scattered my ashes into the river. Yes, I was tragic, but my parents didn't escape tragedy either. Chapter 14. Lisa resented our parents. She hated them for not supporting her, for not understanding her. She blamed all 3 years of her own tragedy entirely on them. In her mind, if they hadn't looked down on Daniel from the beginning, then Daniel would never have treated her the way he did later. So after she married Erick, she refused to see our parents at all. She said she needed them to apologize to her face. Otherwise she would never be able to let it go. She claimed that the wounds of youth required a lifetime to heal. Our parents tried everything to make amends. They even bought gifts for her son, but Lisa packed them all up and sent them back, leaving the 2 old people devastated. They had no son. One daughter had died, and the other refused to recognize them. And Erick, hating anyone who made Lisa unhappy, used the family company to crush my parents' business until they went bankrupt. After the bankruptcy, my parents both fell ill. My mother got sick first. At the beginning, my father still managed to care for her, but soon after, he too collapsed. In their final years, not a single relative visited them. They died in their hometown, sick and starving. By the time anyone found them, their bodies had already begun to rot. Only then did Lisa go back to arrange their funeral. When everything was over, she returned home and wept inconsolably. Yet even then, she kept blaming them. Was it really so hard to just apologize to me? You'd rather die than bow your heads? How could you be so cruel? Now I have no parents anymore. She cried bitterly. But that didn't stop her from rolling around in bed with Erick afterward in her old room, under the pretense of healing her pain. And then, she continued living her happy little life. Disgusting. As for Erick's family, their fate was slightly better, but no less torturous in the process. First, his mother. She hated Lisa for making her son so irrational. During an argument, Lisa pushed her down the stairs. She was left paralyzed. Then his father. Lisa's chaos at the company destroyed critical files and offended an important client, costing the company billions. When he ordered Lisa never to set foot in the company again, she ran to Erick in tears. Erick, wielding his majority shares, forced his own father to step down. The old man suffered a stroke from the fury and became half paralyzed. As for the grandparents, since they opposed Lisa marrying into the family, Lisa went to their old house every day, bowing and scraping, cooking and cleaning to win them over. Her care nearly killed them. She poisoned Grandma with her cooking. Grandpa broke his leg in the chaos, and both old people barely survived. After that, they moved back to their hometown to live out their remaining years in peace, no longer interfering. To Erick, all of this only made Lisa seem more clumsy, adorable, and pure-hearted. He adored her even more. And Lisa? She believed her sincerity had touched everyone. So, whether it was my parents, or Erick's grandparents and parents, she thought all of them simply suffered fated calamities. She was only helping them pass through their trials earlier. At least, in her mind, it spared them a more miserable end later. Back to the present. While all of us stayed in the hospital, the loving couple remained at home, whispering their undying devotion to each other until their words carried them back to bed. Incredible. Really, Erick still had such passion for a pregnant woman. And Lisa, nearly 8 months along, still so eager. What can I say? Truly a match made in hell. Let's lock them together forever. While they fooled around at home, I was in the hospital, coordinating caregivers for the sick, running between wards, and managing business affairs. All my effort did not go unnoticed by my parents-in-law and grandparents. So when my father-in-law handed me an important client contract to sign on behalf of the company, I knew my opportunity had finally come. Chapter 15. That client's name was Victor. Every time he signed with a company, the deal was worth hundreds of millions. Only someone at the very top had the qualification to sign with him. So, discreetly, I let certain people in the company leak the news that I'd be signing a contract with Victor. And sure enough, on the signing day, Lisa waltzed in with her pregnant belly, Erick at her side, acting like the boss lady on inspection. She paraded around giving orders she didn't understand, irritating every department. Employees were venting in group chats, calling her crazy. After her little tour, she strolled into my office. She started poking and touching everything, papers, files, my pen holder, as if she had the right to pry. Erick stood nearby, gazing at her with that nauseating doting smile. My precious darling is so adorable. Of course, I knew exactly what her plan was, so I stuck to my role, playing the villainess to perfection. Don't mess with these. They're important documents. If you ruin them, you can't afford to pay the price. She immediately put on her act, voice trembling with tears. Sister, you only hold this position in name. I'm the real company boss's wife. Why can you touch things? But I can't? And then, coyly glancing at Erick, besides, even if I break something, Erick won't make me pay. Right, Erick? He smiled indulgently, full of patriarchal arrogance. Of course, this is my company. You can do whatever you like. I snapped at him on cue. Erick, are you insane? Do you know how important these are? But Erick, drunk on love, looked at me with eyes full of contempt. In my eyes, Nothing is more important than Lisa. Perfect. The performance was going exactly as planned. Lisa grew bolder. She not only rifled through files, but even tore papers to fold into paper planes, sending me mocking glances, clapping her hands and giggling. She looked like someone with half a brain cell missing. Lisa, get out! I shouted furiously. Erick immediately stepped in front of her. Roxana, who gave you the right to talk to Lisa like that? Apologize. Lisa tugged his sleeve gently, pretending to soothe him. Before walking up to my desk, she picked up my coffee cup, black coffee. She wrinkled her nose, feigned disgust, and cooed. Ugh, how bitter. How can you drink this stuff? Sister? Milk tea tastes much better. Then she deliberately tilted the cup, spilling the entire thing all over my contract. Oh no! I'm so clumsy. I didn't mean it. What should I do? She buried herself in Erick's arms, whimpering apologies with eyes full of triumphant malice. I nearly burst out laughing. Of course it mattered. That contract was worth $500 million. Without waiting for Erick's response, I slapped her hard across the face. Look what you've done. That was Victor's contract, $500 million at stake. Before Erick could react, I grabbed the ruined contract and ran out. Soon, the entire company saw me running around, frantic, trying to salvage the contract, almost in tears. Meanwhile, Lisa trailed behind, adding fuel to the fire with her constant accidents. Until finally, I sent an urgent message to all departments. Stop her. If she keeps this up, the contract won't go through, and none of you will get your bonuses. Chapter 16. After racing against time, I finally managed to piece the contract back together. I brought it into the conference room where Victor was waiting. We went over the terms, and just as he was about to sign, Lisa appeared. This time, she wasn't carrying coffee. She was carrying an enormous cup of milk tea. Half of it spilled over Victor. The other half splashed across the freshly restored contract. Ah, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to bring everyone some milk tea. I didn't mean it. What should I do? No one answered her. Victor silently stood up and left without a word. I sat there for a long moment, then lowered my head onto the table, shoulders trembling. Everyone assumed I was crying, but in truth, I was trying not to laugh. Because I knew, from this moment on, the so-called hero and heroine were finished. Chapter 17. The moment I arrived at the hospital, I fell to my knees before my father-in-law, crying that I had betrayed his trust and ruined everything. I even added, deliberately, that such a grave mistake was entirely my fault, and that I would resign and leave the company to take responsibility, maybe just to watch the drama. Lisa showed up at the hospital, seeing me tearfully admitting guilt. She gloated from the side, throwing in sarcastic comments to fan the flames. Sister, how could you be so careless? You caused such a huge loss for the company. Dad, please don't be too harsh on her. It's just that her ability is limited. I'm sure she didn't mean it. My father-in-law didn't even glance at her. He simply ordered the caretaker, throw her out. Lisa didn't realize he meant her. She thought he was ordering them to throw me out. Dad, even if sister has no merit, she has worked hard. Just let her leave the company. Take back the shares in her hands. Reclaim her business. Make her divorce Erick and strip her of everything. That should be enough. There's no need to throw her out like this. It's too humiliating. Wait. Why are you dragging me? Before she could finish, the caretaker was already pulling her toward the door. Miss, please leave the ward. Lisa screamed. You've got the wrong person. Not me, her. Dad, tell them. They're throwing out the wrong person. The only response was the sound of a cup smashing against her body. Get out. Chapter 18. Of course, I wasn't fired. First, the company has surveillance cameras. Second, the company is full of people. My father-in-law knew perfectly well why that contract hadn't been signed. After a round of self-blame, I lifted my spirits and promised him, Dad, even if you don't blame me, I can't forgive myself. Please, give me another chance. I swear I will land this contract. If I fail, I'll leave the company, and I'll divorce Erick too. My father-in-law sighed. Don't talk nonsense. Just do your best. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. I left the ward with a face full of heaviness, but once I stepped outside, That heavy mask vanished, replaced by a smile of absolute determination. Pressure? It didn't exist. I had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Failure was impossible. I began visiting Victor every single day, for a whole month without fail. To outsiders, I looked miserable, head hanging, sometimes even crying, as though Victor were tormenting me. But the truth? I was sipping tea and playing chess with him, discussing future strategies. No one knew this entire contract fiasco was a scheme Victor and I had planned together. Thanks to that dream, I had kept in touch with him over the past 3 years, offering timely advice, helping him during his company's transition, providing tailored solutions. We had long been allies. The performance was merely to push the male lead out of the game. And so, a month later, I returned to the old estate, feigning a sorrowful face before my father-in-law, who had just been discharged. The next day, he met with Victor, and they talked the whole day. On the 5th day, the board unanimously voted to expel Erick and strip him of all his positions in the company. On the 6th day, Victor specifically named me to sign the contract with him. 2 weeks later, my father-in-law transferred Erick's shares to me, making me the company's first female leader. Of course, it wasn't for free. I signed an agreement, never to leave the company, and never to divorce Erick. I agreed without hesitation to become head of the group, one of the rulers of the business world. That was the summit. What did a nominal marriage matter? And besides, the clause only forbade me from divorcing him if Erick destroyed himself. That was no concern of mine. Freedom? What a joke. In this position, who would dare to make me unhappy? From now on, I would be the one in charge. Lisa was dumbstruck. She started crying, again. This time, she came to the old estate just to cry. Chapter 19. Dad, Mom, Grandpa, Grandma, are you all insane? Roxana is a woman. A woman can only stay at home. Be a good wife and mother. How could she possibly be the chairman? Lisa's voice was shrill, full of arrogance. You must revoke this appointment and return all the shares to Erick. Or else. She hesitated for a moment, then lifted her chin in defiance, threatening, or else. I'll get rid of this child. She even gave a proud little laugh. Let me tell you something, Erick has been permanently sterilized. He'll never have children again. The baby in my belly may not carry your blood, but in name it's still Erick's child. And therefore, your grandchild. The room fell silent. No one spoke, but every single expression was the same, like they were staring at an idiot. But Lisa had long since grown accustomed to talking to herself, blind to anyone's reactions. She stroked her swollen belly, smugness radiating from her face. Or better yet, give me all the shares directly. Then in the future I'll pass them down to my son, and everything will. What are you doing? Let me go. Unable to endure another second, my mother-in-law finally snapped. She ordered the security guards to drag Lisa out. As always, when the heroine was bullied, the male lead had to charge in for payback. Sure enough, Erick stormed in, fury blazing in his eyes. He slammed a stack of papers onto the table, voice cold and menacing. I advise you to transfer the shares to Lisa immediately. If you don't, I'll cut ties with all of you. And to prove he wasn't bluffing, he spread out the printed severance agreement, pressing his palm down on it. Don't think I'm joking. Right now, this instant, transfer everything to Lisa. Grandpa and Grandma simply looked at him long and deeply, then shook their heads and slowly stood up. You can do whatever you want, Grandpa said calmly. After all, we don't just have one grandson. The words struck like a hammer. Erick's face stiffened. His parents sat in silence for a long time before finally speaking. You really are determined to be with Lisa? For her, you're willing to sever ties with us? Erick clutched his chest, softening his gaze, his voice trembling with passion. She is the only light in my dark and hopeless life. I love her. For her, I can give up everything. Even if it means standing against the whole world, I'll still be with her. Father-in-law gave a slow nod. Very well, then let me fulfill your wish. Erick's face lit up with joy. Dad, that's how it should be. Now hurry. Transfer all the shares to Lisa. She's suffered too much. From now on, I'll make her the happiest woman in the world. But father-in-law said nothing more. Instead, He calmly picked up a pen and signed his name on the severance agreement. Erick froze. Then, with a sigh, my mother-in-law also signed her name. As you wish, she said quietly. You don't have to live in darkness anymore. Go chase your light. Chapter 20. 3 years later. My name was no longer just known in the city. It appeared on the global rich list. I still kept my old habits, often sending gifts to my in-laws and grandparents. Perhaps because we were all once the villainous side characters. Our goals aligned, and we got along surprisingly well. They now treated me as real family, showering me with affection. Compared to my success and glory, the so-called male and female leads were miserable. After cutting ties with his family, Erick finally divorced me, a decision his parents agreed to. So technically, I hadn't broken my promise. He walked away with nothing, dragging Lisa to rent a shabby apartment. Lisa had been reborn just to become a wealthy wife and enjoy a glamorous life. Yet after all her scheming, she found herself back in a dingy rental. In her anger, she gave birth early, but once the baby arrived, their already strained finances collapsed further. The child couldn't even get proper formula. Lisa spent her days in gloom and tears, blaming fate for being so cruel. She had expected Erick to build an empire for her and their child, but outside of his family, without his male lead halo, Erick was worthless. Too proud for menial jobs, too incompetent for better ones. He couldn't even find stable work. At first, love barely held them together. Later, they drowned in mutual resentment. Disillusioned, Lisa took the baby and left Erick. Just as in her dreams, she ran back to our parents, blaming them for everything, demanding an apology, so she could rightfully return home. But strangely, our parents cut ties with her completely. They even wrote a will, leaving everything to me. Not a single cent for Lisa. After several failed tantrums, she left the baby behind and stormed out. The next time I saw her was at a business banquet. She clung to the arm of a man old enough to be her father, cooing darling at him, flattering to the point of humiliation. She was stuck at the bottom tier of the event. She didn't even see me seated in the highest circle. The truth was simple. She no longer had the qualifications to appear before me. As for Erick, after years of poverty and regret, he crawled back to his parents in tears, begging for forgiveness. He said he wanted to come home, but by then, my in-laws already had plenty of new sons. Handsome, sweet-talking, brilliant young men they had sponsored through university. They even had a grandson, adopted from another branch of the family. They were finally enjoying their twilight years in peace and laughter. They had no desire to look at Erick, the failure who had only ever brought them pain. Out of rage, Erick decided to threaten them by pretending to jump off a building. But halfway through his performance, Lisa suddenly appeared. In her panic, she accidentally bumped into him, sending him straight over the edge. It wasn't too serious, just immediate death. As it turned out, Lisa had been living in a tiny attic room in the same building. She'd seen someone threatening to jump and thought she could play the hero. One could only say, her reckless heroine persona remained unshaken. As the police took her away, she was still crying. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, please. Forgive me, okay? But unfortunately for her, from that day on, there would never again be anyone left to pay the price for her mistakes.